Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy Deluxe class Prime Universe Knockout. This is our third entry into Legacy, directly inspired by Transformers Prime, and when these characters were first unveiled I was actually completely on board with the reimagining of them. However, since then we've seen the likes of the Cybertron Universe characters, G2, Beast Wars, even Robots in Disguise, and all of those have stayed pretty faithful to the original source material, so it really does beg the question as to why these Prime characters in particular have become so redesigned, especially considering in the original show they had some of the coolest, some of the sleekest looking designs of all time, whereas here in Legacy they've definitely been blocked out. They've just been made to look slightly chubbier and, let's be honest, at least in my opinion, a downgrade over their original counterparts. But as saying that, Knockout is actually the best out of all three in my opinion. I think as far as a standalone deluxe goes, this is actually a pretty decent release. Now as we take a closer look at the details, I think the head sculpt actually looks really nice. You can see as far as the sculpt work goes, pretty on point. I think the paintwork is pretty decent as well. You can see we've got a nice pale white used there, as well as red for the chin, metallic silver for the crest, and the actual sculpt here for the helmet kind of gives me the impression that Knockout's got a pretty sick looking slick back. Now as we take a look at the chest piece from a front-on perspective, in vehicle mode it looks fantastic. We've got this wicked metallic silver, smoky plastic here for the headlights as well as for the Decepticon insignia, but you'll recall that Knockout was by far one of the slimmest characters in the show, whereas with this guy, if you do decide to pose him kind of from a bird's eye perspective, the chest is just way too big and bulky for my liking. Even here from this angle you can just see how it kind of juts out ever so slightly further than personally I would like, and when I bring in his mold mate, that being Studio Series Jazz, you'll see that even that figure had a much smaller chest, so I'm not entirely sure as to why they decided to go so big here for this character. But as we take a look at this undersection, you can see sculpted really well, loads of mechanical detail, some of the cybernetic components such as pistons and wires, that looks really impressive. The shoulders and biceps are a direct carryover from Studio Series Jazz, but not looking too bad, this time cast out of grey plastic. I think the forearms look nice, and so do the hands, and this entire mid-piece I also believe is a direct carryover, but it's been painted really well. Nice glossy red there for this section, as well as metallic silver for the mid-torso. And as we just take a look at the legs, overall a pretty nicely designed looking figure, really painted pretty nicely as well, especially where the red's concerned. You can see the feet look awesome, and as we flip here to the underside, they have actually sculpted in what would appear to be thruster details. I definitely thought that was a nice touch. And as we take a look at the back of Knockout, considering he's an extensive retool of Jazz, he does transform in the exact same way, so has pretty much identical backpack kibble to that figure. Now articulation wise, Knockout does have a ball joint here at the head, which can look up, down, ever so slightly, tilt side to side, rotate the full 360. We do get a full rotation here at the shoulder, hinge joint out to the side, rotation at the bicep, 90-degree bend there at the elbow, as well as a full waist rotation. Hips can kick forwards that far, back to that far, out to the sides, rotation at the thigh, 90-degree bend here at the knee, unless you disengage the transformation joint, which does allow you to get a much greater range. And then finally we do get an astonishing ankle rocker pivot, which really does allow you to put this guy into some pretty dynamic poses. So as a whole, definitely a pretty solid deluxe release. I do just wish that chest was ever so slightly smaller, especially in terms of just how long and beefy it looks from certain angles. Now accessory wise, Knockout includes this really cool staff weapon that we actually see him use in Transformers Prime, and this for the most part has stayed pretty truthful. You can see the sculpt work for the handle looks great, cast out of grey plastic, and then we do get this secondary component which is the Energon infused piece, and you can see completely cast out of a smoky plastic that has got a lovely metallic blue strip going through the center. Now as far as integration goes, Knockout does hold this at a rather peculiar angle. You basically have this additional section which juts out. I would have much rather had this been able to split so that we then could have slid this main section through the hand just to create for a slightly more natural positioning, especially when getting him into some of those dynamic poses. It can look slightly strange, but other than that I think it's a pretty decent attempt to give Knockout a brand new retake on the design, but I really would have much rather had seen a true to form version of the character as seen in Transformers Prime. Here for some comparisons, we have the Legacy Knockout on the left and the robot enhanced design version on the right, which is probably the best representation we're ever going to see for a true to form version of the character as he appeared in the show, and you can definitely see the stark difference in terms of design. They've basically taken what was a super sleek, elegant, and rather slender looking design and have just squished it, extended certain components out to make this rather chubby incarnation that we're seeing here for Legacy. I really don't think it looks bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it would have resonated a lot better had they just called this, say, a G1 universe inspired version of Knockout. I just don't think that the kind of Prime motif has carried over that successfully from how amazing the original design looked. As we just turn here from a side perspective, we don't even have the wheels, which are supposed to store here on the top. So definitely a major departure when in comparison to what we originally saw from Transformers Prime, but still, as its own release, I don't think it looks that bad at all. Here we have him alongside the Studio Series 86 Jazz, and you guys can definitely see that they share incredibly similar robot mode designs. For the most part, this is basically just a reshelling of what we saw here from Jazz. As far as the similarities are concerned, the shoulders and biceps are exactly the same between the two. I believe the hands are the same, the thighs appear to be different, but this waist section is exactly the same, especially as far as the mid-torso goes. But I think that is pretty much it. Everything else appears to be brand new. As mentioned beforehand, I do think that Knockout has a chest of which is just ever so slightly too big and broad for the character, especially as mentioned beforehand, he was incredibly streamlined and elegant in the show, and as we flip here to the back, you can see the massive similarities in regards to transformation. They basically share identical engineering, so the backpack does store away in the exact same way. Definitely not a bad mold to base this guy on, but I do wish that these characters were true to form as they originally appeared in that 2011 series. Here we have Knockout compared alongside the Legacy Prime Universe inspired version of RC, and as far as the redesign is concerned, definitely a lot better when in comparison to this previous RC figure, but still not 100% perfect in my opinion. And here we have the big chungus himself, the Voyager class Prime Universe Bulkhead, and you can see definitely a big difference as far as the Deluxe and Voyager ratio is concerned, but both very, very different in regards to how they originally appeared on screen. Now, as we take a look at the transformation, for those of you who have transformed Jazz, you'll know exactly what to expect with this guy, and surprisingly, it's actually pretty enjoyable. I found myself converting him back and forth quite a few times. Now, to begin with, you're going to want to take the fists and just compress them into the hollow cavities. What we can then do is rotate at the biceps so that the hollow section is now facing forwards. You'll then want to flip here to the base, snap the toes in, and then as far as these sections are concerned, they are a little too tight for my liking. You kind of have to pry them outwards and then slide that into these black notches to secure them for vehicle mode. Repeat the same process here for this side, so you can wriggle these around for robot mode, but for vehicle mode they are supposed to overlap on this section, and it can take quite a bit of force to actually get them to snap into place. So just lock those in there like this. You'll then want to spin your attention here to the back, flip out this piece, take the rear of the vehicle, snap this section out. Completely transparent, much like Jazz, although I will say the plastic feels so much thicker and a lot more durable when in comparison to that release, so I don't think this is going to break or crack over time, especially if you are delicate when handling him. We can then hinge these out to the sides or rotate at the waist so that this silver component is facing the back. We can then disengage at this region and then rotate this grey section forwards so that we're left with something along the lines of this, and they've even gone to the extent of actually sculpting this piece to kind of resemble a mechanical cog, which I thought was quite a neat touch. We can then bring the head all the way under, so just snap that in there, take this piece, snap that just like so. You'll then want to fold the shoulders down and then rotate these sections inwards, and this grey piece will kind of act as a stopper to prevent them from going any further into the middle. So repeat the same process for this side. What you'll then want to do is disengage the knee joints, hinge this section up, rinse and repeat here for this side, flip to the back, snap that in there really securely, and then slide the front section of the windscreen into the hood until that clicks in, snap the back section into place, and there is a tab on the side of the forearm that will peg into that slot, and then these tabs will groove into this tab. So just snap this in here first of all, then click that there into place, spin your attention to this side, and of course rinse and repeat. So just snap that in there, click that in there, And there we have the Transformers Legacy Prime Universe Knockout, fully transformed up into robot mode, and overall looking pretty awesome. I really do think they've done a fantastic job where the alt mode is concerned, and this certainly does harken back to that original Transformers Prime Knockout design. You can see as we take a look here at the front, as mentioned in robot mode, some amazing metallic silver here for this bumper, and the sculptwork even here for the top section of the hood looks fantastic. You can see all of the different various vents. I love the smoky plastic they've used for the windscreen, really does help to conceal some of that interior robot mode kibble. And here at the back you can see how they've sculpted this rear window, which I think looks fantastic. As we spin our attention to the tail section of the vehicle, pretty nicely sculpted. Overall, I think that's turned out great, but of course, the coolest area of this alt mode has got to be the side. This looks amazing, and I was actually very surprised to see just how well painted this was. So they've perfectly captured kind of that tattoo detailing that Knockout actually had in Transformers Prime. He was always cautious not to scratch his paintwork, so I'm really glad to see that character trait carried over here for this new Legacy version. I think that looks fantastic, and the actual rims themselves look awesome, painted in this super cool metallic gold mustard, really looking faithful to that original Transformers Prime show. Overall, a very solid, awesome looking vehicle mode. Now, as far as the comparison is concerned, here we have Knockout compared next to Studio Series Jazz. So you can see from the underside, they transform in the exact same manner. It really is just a few of the robot and vehicle pieces of which have been retooled. And as we take a look at them here from a bird's eye perspective, the entire vehicle has been completely reshelled, making them look, at least here in alt mode, like completely different figures. Definitely be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, out of the two, which do you guys think the mold suits better? Honestly, I think it suits Knockout a little better, especially as far as the transformation goes. It feels so much nicer and a lot less stressful to convert this guy when in comparison to Jazz, just as the plastic they've used for the transparent piece is a lot thicker and feels a heck of a lot more durable. Here's Knockout alongside some of the other Transformers Prime Legacy inspired characters, those being Bulkhead and RC, and I believe Knockout is actually the final release for Transformers Prime that is supposed to grace Legacy. I can't think of any rumored upcoming listings. So overall, as far as this set's concerned, I really do think Knockout is the best out of the bunch, with of course RC being the worst. I just think as far as her robot mode was concerned, they absolutely missed the mark, especially where the placement of the wheels went for the legs. But Bulkhead was pretty decent. I'd say these guys are probably roughly on par with one another. I do think that Knockout is the better just overall in terms of enjoyability, but design wise they are pretty much exactly the same in my opinion. As we just take a look at them here from a side perspective, you can see Knockout is actually a pretty decently sized deluxe, and here we have him alongside RC. So you can see here the scale is way off, but from a deluxe perspective, pretty decently sized. And as far as the accessories go, we can take the staff weapon, peg it here into this tab if you wanted, so you can have him slicing down some Autobots when in battle, or we can port it here into the top section of the roof, and the vehicle actually surprisingly rolls pretty freely. And so, some final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Deluxe Class Prime Universe Knockout. Overall, I'd say this is a pretty average release. As far as the recommendation goes, unless you're a diehard completionist of all of the characters from Legacy, or you absolutely love Transformers Prime, even these redesigns, then I would really just wait for this guy to either go on clearance or perhaps not pick him up at all. There really isn't anything here that is mind-blowing. The figure, for the most part, completely utilizes the engineering from Studio Series Jazz, so as far as the conversion goes, it's basically nothing that we haven't seen before. I think the redesign to the robot mode is undeniably one of the better ones that we've seen for the Transformers Prime characters, but still not perfect. They appear to be missing some of the biggest design assets which really made those Transformers Prime characters stand out, such as the sleek, slender nature to Knockout's chest. I just think that it is completely devoid of what we saw from the original show. This guy's a lot more bulky, a lot more blockier, and of course has been kind of G1ified. I don't think it looks terrible, but at least for me, as far as a personal preference is concerned, I really do think they could have broken up that chest ever so slightly more. I imagine it would have changed the mold and the engineering quite a lot, but Knockout definitely is supposed to have quite a sleek looking curvy chest, so I definitely would have liked to have seen that at least here for this figure. I think the head looks great. As far as an actual deluxe release is concerned, it's very solid. It poses awesome. It looks, for the most part, pretty decent if you just try and stray away from that whole Transformers Prime inspired gimmick. I think the weapon is really nice. Definitely harkens back to the Prime show. The Energon infused piece looks awesome, especially that transparent piece. As far as transformation goes, very simplistic, much like Studio Series Jazz. A lot more stress-free in my opinion, considering that that transparent plastic appears to be thickened up ever so slightly. And as far as the vehicle mode is concerned, concerned, I think it looks fantastic. So overall, definitely just an alright figure. For those of you who want a fun deluxe release, then I guess pick this guy up. If you're not massively keen on the design, then this is definitely one that I think you can easily miss out. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Is this a figure you guys plan on adding to the collection? And like me, are you guys pretty much done as far as these Prime Universe inspired characters go? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section, and as always, I thank you all so much for watching. Until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.